Hey guys, my name is Taylor and welcome back to Taylor on TV. Okay, so last week, well, not last week because it's been a minute since I uploaded anything on this channel. The last video I did, I covered Tyler Perry's Temptation, Confessions of a Marriage Counselor, and that was actually my first entry into like my top 100 favorite movies. So if you're interested in knowing what one of my favorite movies is, you can watch it here. I should be linking it somewhere up here. Before that, we did Tyler Perry's A Divorce in the Black. That was a train wreck. If you're interested in knowing more about that, I'll link it up here somewhere. It's going to pop up. I don't know. But this week, we're going to be revisiting the very first video that I covered on this channel, which was Joyride, the one that came out in 2001, not the most recent one, because who wants to see that? The very first movie I did on this channel was Joyride, and there are actually 2 sequels, so it's a trilogy. I think that's all there is. I hope that's all there is. So in this video, we're going to be covering the sequel, which is called Joyride 2, Dead Ahead. So when I first started watching this movie, I was 99% sure that I had never seen it. But the more and more I watched it, the more and more I was kind of like, maybe I have seen this. It seems so familiar. Like all the actors seem very familiar. The plot seemed familiar. And I'm not sure if I have seen it or not. Back in 2008, was Blockbuster still around in 2008? Hollywood movie? I was more of a Hollywood movie girl. But back, yeah, I think it was. Back in 2008, I was a Hollywood movie fool. Like I was renting everything. So I believe this film was a straight to DVD release. And if it was, I'm like 80% sure I probably did rent this at one point in time. But let's get into the notable cast because everybody seemed so familiar. So starting off strong, we have Nikki Acox, and she's starring as Melissa. I recognize her from Jeepers Creepers 2. So up next, we have Nick Zano as Bobby. He looked very familiar to me, but when I looked it up, the most likely thing that I saw him in was Final Destination. And he's a part of that racetrack scene in Final Destination. So up next, we have Kyle Schmid. I think that's how you say his name. And he plays Nick. When I saw him, I was going insane. Like I didn't want to look it up because he looked so familiar. And I'm like, I know you from somewhere. And I wanted to recall it from memory, but I couldn't. He is actually Raven's love interest in the original Cheetah Girls movie. So that's where I know him from. And then finally, we have Laura Jordan playing Kayla. So I don't know if it's her hair or if it's her outfit or the fact that it's 2008, but she looked like a Degrassi character. And so I was scrolling trying to figure out like, where have I seen her? And sure enough, she was on a Degrassi episode. I think she was an extra. She's not like a main character in Degrassi. There's no reason why I should have pinned her to that show, but she was in Degrassi. So there's that. Also, we have the return of Rusty Nail, and Rusty Nail is played by Mark Gibbon, and I do believe that is a different actor than the original Rusty Nail. And the reason why I say that, his voice is very different than the original. It's not as menacing as it was in the first one, but I think we'll get into that. So without further ado, let's get into a full breakdown of Joyride 2, Dead Ahead. So the movie begins and we're following a lot lizard as she is trying to sell her services. So when I say lot lizard, I'm not trying to be funny. On IMDb, her character's name is literally Lot Lizard. We do not shame on this channel. Girl, make that money. Don't let it make you. Okay. But they literally call her Lot Lizard. So Lot Lizard gets into the passenger seat of the car and she lifts up her shirt and flashes her boobies, I guess like a little appetizer or a little, preview of the services. She then follows this up by giving him a list of her prices, and it's some pretty reasonable prices. But then again, this is 2008, but the prices was reasonable to me. Like
75 for a straight buck, 50 for a BJ, and 25 for a pump and run.
So the truck driver doesn't really seem to be interested in anything that she's selling. Instead, he rolls down the passenger window and he asks her to get wet for him. It's raining. I forgot to mention it's raining. So he rolls down the window and he asks her to get wet for him, i.e. lean out of the window. Get your mind out of the gutter. To which she's like, you're wasting my time. Like, you playing games. Let me out of this truck. She tries to open the passenger door, but it is now locked. And he says, your only way out is to climb out of that window. As she's attempting to climb out of the window, he actually rolls the window up, clamping her in the side of the window. He then drives very closely beside another big rig or 18-wheeler, whatever you want to call it, and knocks her head clean off her shoulders. And that is the beginning of Joyride 2, Dead Ahead. So now we cut to the next scene where we meet three of our main characters, Melissa, Bobby, and Kayla. So Melissa and Bobby are engaged, and Melissa and Kayla are sisters. So they are actually on a road trip to Vegas where they will be celebrating Melissa and Bobby's bachelor and bachelorette parties. They are actually having a joint party, which I think is so adorable. Why not? If you guys have similar friend groups, like if everybody mingles together, why not? So during the road trip, they pull over to get gas where they meet a gas station attendant. Now, this gas station attendant is very flirty with Kayla. He actually leans into the car and kisses her, which alarms Bobby and Melissa. But turns out this is actually Kayla's long distance online boyfriend. His name is Nick, and him and Kayla actually met on MySpace, which is the most 2008 thing ever. And Nick actually mentions that Kayla is in his top 8, which is so 2008. Oh my gosh, I really missed my MySpace days. So this is their first time meeting in real life, or IRL, if you remember the AOL days. So the sisters go in the bathroom and Melissa expresses her concerns to her sister Kayla about this guy, Nick. You don't know him. You've never met him in person. To which Kayla is like, well, we chatted online and we even video called each other. And honestly, that's a lot more than a lot of people can say, because there's no reason why Catfish should have more than 3 seasons. Like, there's no reason. I love Catfish, don't get me wrong. But how are these people talking to people for years and they've never video called? And then they could video call in 2008. Anyways, while Kayla and Melissa are in the bathroom talking about Nick, Nick is actually outside trying to convince Bobby to take a shortcut to get to Las Vegas. He says that the back roads would be a lot quicker, and the quicker they can get to Vegas, the quicker they can start partying. So everyone agrees to stick to the back roads because it'll be quicker, but not long after they start driving, the car actually breaks down. Now, since they're in the middle of nowhere, they have no other option but to set out on foot. As they are walking through this desert heat, they all begin to strip down, everyone except for Nick. Nick has this like 2008 rocker vibe to him. I don't even know what you would call it because it's like a combination of a few things. But Bobby ends up calling him goth and actually tells him to take off his jacket and drop his gothic persona, to which Nick replies that it is not gothic. It is more of a third wave emo punk kind of vibe. And if that's not 2008, I don't know what is. I probably would have described myself to be the exact same thing in 2008, if I'm being for real. So as they are walking, they approach a gate outside of a house. So as they approach the house seems abandoned to the point where Nick just busts a window out of the house and enters. So after Nick enters the house, he actually screams as if he's hurt, and the rest of the group kicks down the front door to check on him, and he's just joking. So he's one of those everything is a joke kind of guy. So keep that in mind. But now that the whole group is inside of the house, they look around and things seem abandoned. Like the food is expired, cobwebs and dust everywhere. So they feel like nobody has lived here for quite some time. So after they explore the whole house, they decide to venture outside. And right in front of the house is this huge canyon. And the way that they look at it, you can already tell there's a bit of foreshadowing here. Like this canyon is probably going to come back up later. But after they're done looking at the canyon, they go out back and there is a shed. It's more of like a garage. I don't know how to explain it. It's this really big shed barn kind of thing behind the house. But inside there's like a lot of tools and like a lot of equipment. And on the walls, there is some writing in red ink. And it's body parts, and then next to the body parts, it's a number. So it'll say like chest and then the number 5, or leg and the number 6. We're going to revisit that later. But as they're walking around, they find a car and they decide that they're going to borrow the car, not steal it, borrow. So when I first saw this car, I thought it was the same car that Paul Walker had in the first Joyride movie, which actually would have been pretty cool, but I don't think it is. I think this car is a completely different color if I'm not mistaken. But just like the car in the first film, there is a CB radio installed in the dash. Everyone decides they're going to take the car for a joyride. And I think that this film is more appropriately titled Joyride as opposed to the first film, because I think joyride means stealing a car and then like riding around in it. So this is more of a joyride than the original. So before they pull off, Melissa decides to write a note. She doesn't tell anybody except for Bobby that she's going to be leaving this note. But basically, she wants to leave a phone number for the homeowner to call if they're looking for their car. She doesn't want it to be a stolen car. Again, they're saying that they're borrowing it. So she's leaving a note to let the homeowner know where the car is and to give her a call whenever he gets back home. So later on that evening, we see the 18-wheeler pull up to the front of the house, and he notices immediately that the front door has been kicked in. Now, this scene is actually hilarious because we don't see the truck driver. We see the truck. Only the truck, and it seems like the truck is emoting or showing emotion, like there's steam coming out of the top of the truck like it's a character of its own. It's actually kind of hilarious. So we are back with the group and they pull up at a diner. Now on their way inside of the diner, Melissa stops and she checks out a bike and she starts listing all the specs of the bike like she's some kind of biker chick expert. I think she's talking about this guy she dated and how he was into bikes, and she learns a lot from him. And in the moment, it's very random, but it does come back up later. So we'll revisit this again later. Once they're done talking about the bike, a big rig goes by and almost runs them over. Kayla throws her coffee at the back of the truck and shoots the truck a bird, gives it a straight up middle finger. Then Nick just yells, "Rage Against the Machine."
Asshole! Yeah, rage against the machine, motherfucker! Son of a bitch!
Like, I've never heard it used in that context. And I don't know if they're just trying to make him seem more... But then again, this is 2008, so I don't know. So inside of the diner, Nick starts going off about everybody around them. He says that they are surrounded by trucker trash and that truckers are nothing but speed junkies who only hook up with disease-ridden hookers. So Bobby tells him that he needs to chill out and that he cannot talk about people like that. So here is our first theme of like bets and talks of bets and playing like gambling games. So Nick says, "I bet you X amount of money that I can get any of these truck drivers pissed off enough to walk up out of here." And then Bobby was like, "Okay, I bet you a stack of money that you can't shut your mouth for 5 minutes." So Bobby is so agitated with Nick and everything that he's saying, he storms off and he goes to the bathroom. And he's in there for quite a while, and Melissa begins to worry, like, where is my man? So not long after she begins worrying, she gets a phone call on her cell phone from a very scruffy voiced man, and he's referring to her as Goldilocks. She thinks he's talking about her blonde hair, but he says, "No, I'm talking about the fact that you came into my house, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears." So now Melissa knows that this is the homeowner since she left her phone number in the note that she left about taking the car. So she apologizes and she tells them that we needed to take the car. We were stranded. We had no intentions of stealing your car. We just needed some help. The man on the phone is like, "You know what? Don't even worry about it. Don't rush back. Take your time with the car." So then he says, "I don't want to worry a single hair on that pretty blonde head." So then Melissa's like, "Wait, how do you know I'm blonde?" And he's like, "It's just a guess, Goldilocks." If you've seen the original, the name he was taunting with was Candy Cane. And in this one, our Candy Cane is now Goldilocks. So Melissa then thanks him for not going to the police. And he's like, "Yeah, no problem. As long as you return the favor," which is a weird thing to say. And she's like, "Why would I call the police?" And the voice on the phone says, "Because I have something of yours now." The man on the phone has kidnapped Bobby. Melissa then gets up and she runs to the bathroom and she sees Bobby is not there, but there is a note written in blood. I have rewound this multiple times. I still don't know what was written in blood on the urinal. And I do not want to shame on this channel. I never want to shame on this channel. But if I was engaged to a man and he got snatched up out the bathroom by another man, he didn't make no sound. There wasn't no tussle. Unless he drugged you, like stuck you in the neck, we could have to talk about this later, because how you let another man snatch you up out the bathroom? Did you at least pinch him? Like, did you fight him at all? I don't know. If I was Melissa, Bobby gonna have to take some self-defense classes or get him a whistle or something, because You left a little too quiet. I'm gonna need you to make some noise, shake the table. There need to be some furniture moving up and something. So Melissa runs outside and she's looking around for where Bobby could have went. Now, again, this is 2008 because as she's outside, I see her little Henley top. I think these were called Henleys. They used to sell them at like Aeropostale, Abercrombie & Fitch, Hollister. It was my favorite kind of top and I wore it, and to the point where my gut got too big and I could not wear them anymore. But they were my favorite shirts back in 2008, and I say, bring back Henley tops. So Melissa goes back to the car that they stole, and she's trying to call out on the CB radio to get back in contact with somebody. And she's greeted by the man who called her on the phone, and he tells her,
You can call me Rusty Nail.
So now we know that Rusty Nail was the man in the truck with the lot lizard, and that the house that they broke into actually belonged to Rusty Nail as well. We could kind of assume this from the first movie, but this is his first time being introduced as Rusty Nail in the sequel. Rusty Nail sends Melissa a photo of Bobby tied up in the truck.
Oh my God, Bobby.
Couldn't be my man. So Rusty Nail instructs Melissa to take everyone's cell phones, her cell phone, Kayla's phone, and Nick's phone, and run it over with their car so that they can't call for help. They can't call the police. Melissa runs over everyone's cell phones in order to comply with what Rusty Nail wanted them to do. Nick does not agree with this plan. He thinks it's kind of stupid because what are the odds that this man is standing back and watching us? How about we just keep a phone just in case? But Melissa's like, nah, I gotta save my man. So let's run over all the phones. So Melissa's like, okay, got it. What's next? Rusty Nail then says, your friend, she threw coffee at my truck and then she gave me something. Rusty Nail is talking about the finger. He says, your friend gave me the finger and I want it. I figured if she gave it to me, it's mine to keep, right? So it's a little play on words. Like if you give somebody the finger, if you gave it to me, give it to me. I want to keep it. He wants Kayla to cut off her middle finger, and then he wants for Melissa to deliver it alone. So he tells them stand by for a place and time, but in the meantime, be cutting off that finger. So of course, Kayla, Nick, and Melissa are all freaking out. Like, what are we about to do? You know, am I really about to cut off my finger? Am I really about to deliver my sister's finger? So obviously everyone's freaking out. They're driving around trying to figure out like what's their next plan going to be. Are they really going to cut off Kayla's finger? And during this time, we find out that Nick's dad was actually a truck driver. Since his dad was a truck driver, he knows all the ins and outs. He figures that Rusty Nail used the CB radio to ask other truck drivers, have they seen the stolen car? Because he's a truck driver, more than likely he has a police scanner in the truck. So calling 911 probably isn't a smart idea because he'll probably hear that call. Then Nick figures, since Rusty Nail wants the finger much later, he's probably doing something else in the meantime, which means he's not watching them and they can make a move and do something else. So they all come up with going to a morgue so that they can cut the middle finger off of a dead body and then deliver it to Rusty Nail and pretend that it's Kayla's finger. So outside of the morgue, Melissa says, I'll do it since I'm good with blood. So Kayla says, no, Melissa, you don't have to go in and cut off the finger. This is my problem. I'll go cut it off. So Kayla asked Nick to come with her to the morgue. Nick grabs a pipe out of this dumpster-like area, like to serve as a weapon as they're going into the morgue. Once they get to the door, Kayla then tells Nick that he can leave. I'm not sure why she even told him to come because she turns him away before they even get inside the morgue. Once she walks inside, there's this scene of her walking in the door. And if you told me this was a clip out of an episode of Degrassi, I would believe you. Anyways, once inside of the morgue, Kayla sees the body of a man laying on a slab. And she's walking up to the man. And before she can begin to cut off his finger, he rolls over. And I can't figure out for the life of me, is this a worker taking a nap inside of the morgue? Because how does a dead body roll over like this? Like, I know bodies move post-mortem, but the way he he actually rolls over completely is giving this man is taking a nap. And that's crazy if that's true. And then it looks like he kind of has this lab coat on too. And then even after he rolls over, she doesn't proceed to cut off his finger. So my money is on this man is taking a nap on the table, on the slab in the morgue. This is crazy. He's taking a nap where you cut people open. Okay. They never address this again, and the man doesn't wake up or anything like that. So I guess we're up to speculate, but I'm pretty sure he's asleep. So she goes over to like the wall of like the pull-out drawers in a morgue, and she finds a woman, and we get another titty shot because low-budget sequels need titties. We had one in the beginning, and we got one now. I guess they said if we can't give them nothing else thrilling, let's give them a show. She cuts that woman's finger off. Finger acquired. Now, as she's leaving, they actually run into a worker. He's up this time, another worker pulling up from his lunch break, I guess. And he's walking in, and they like narrowly escape being caught by this morgue worker. I think he actually runs up to the car, and they think that he knows what they did, but he's just like, y'all can't park out here. Y'all gotta go. So I guess just a little extra tension on top of everything else. So later that evening, they get instructions from Rusty Nail. They have the time and they have the location, but she is to come alone. So Kayla and Nick get out of the car, and Melissa pulls up to the designated location. So Rusty Nail gives Melissa instructions to pull up in front of his truck and step out and get naked. And the reason why he wants her to do this is to ensure that she does not have a wire on her or any kind of listening devices like that. So while she's slow poking, Rusty then decides to cut off Bobby's finger. And I don't know if Melissa can hear this over the radio. It's not clear. But as soon as Bobby starts screaming, she just like, fine, I'll do it. I'll get out. So she gets out and she decides to strip down naked as instructed. And then she moves slowly to the driver's side door. So as Melissa is walking up to the side of the driver's side door, a guy opens it up, and it's some nasty freak. Like it's not even Rusty Nail. It's some guy literally with his pants unzipped, and he's been recording her the whole time. And he says that he's going to upload it to YouTube and get 1 million hits. So that's how you know this is 2008, because YouTube, I don't think you could upload stuff like that to YouTube now. The guidelines are so strict. So basically, this was a whole ploy set up by Rusty Nail. He called out on the CB radio, and he said, if you want to see a nasty, freaky girl stripping down naked in the dirt, park over here at 8 o'clock. She'll be coming through real soon. So he just set Melissa up to strip down in front of some creep. So once this freak nasty guy discovers that Melissa ain't bout it, he goes off on her, and he tells her that she wasn't fine anyway.
I'm out of here. Your titties are too small anyways. I like them super Mongo jugs. Yeah, you heard me. Circus boobs.
And he tells her that her boobs are too small. Like, this is the most random scene in this movie, but it's actually hilarious. So Melissa then goes back to the car, and she gets back on the CB radio, and she tells Rusty Nail, like, I've done everything that you asked me to do. I don't understand why you're playing like this. And Rusty Nail is like, me playing? You think I'm playing? I told y'all to cut off that girl's finger. I saw y'all go down to the morgue, and you tried to pass off a dead finger for a fresh finger. So you the one that's playing games, not me. Matter of fact, if you want to see what a fresh finger looks like, look in that glove box. So Melissa opens the glove box, and there is Bobby's fresh finger in the glove box, the one that he had just cut off, a couple of minutes ago. Which then means that Rusty Nail was somewhere hiding out, and he was able to sneak a finger in her car without her seeing it somehow, I guess. I don't know. So naturally, Melissa is devastated, and what else could she do at this point? So in the next scene, we are with Rusty Nail, and he stops at this little club bar kind of place to buy some cigarettes. Now, while they're pulled over, Bobby attempts to call for help from a guy in the parking lot. And while he's calling for help, Rusty Nail actually kills the guy in the parking lot, because I think the guy was going to call 911 or something like that. So I guess they did this to up the body count in the sequel. He killed the lot lizard in the beginning, and now he killed the guy outside the bar. So I guess they just wanted, more entertainment for this one. So after murdering the guy in the parking lot, Rusty Nail then calls Melissa on the CB radio, and he gives her next task. The next task is to pick up chicken feed. So since Nick's dad was a trucker, he knows that chicken feed is slang for crystal meth. So following the instructions to pick up chicken feed, he tells them to check the trunk. Now, Nick says he's not checking the trunk, so Kayla has to get out and check it. So this is like, basically, Nick is deteriorating in front of us. He's so scared to do all kinds of stuff. He doesn't even want to go out and check the trunk. but he makes his girlfriend go do it. Okay. So in the trunk, Kayla finds clothes, and these are actually the clothes from the lot lizard in the opening scene. Rusty Nail says that Nick has to put on these clothes, go down to this, like, it's this weird trucker area. It almost looks like a alley, but he wants Nick to put on the lot lizard's clothes, go down there and get the chicken feed, aka the crystal meth. And basically, everyone is kind of peeping that this will be a huge issue if a man dressed as a woman goes down trying to mingle with these aggressive truckers. Again, this is 2008. So they're using all kinds of politically incorrect terms to describe a man dressed up as a woman. We won't be saying them on this channel, but use your imagination. He actually drops this word twice in this scene. And Nick is basically saying, I'm not going out there dressed up like this. That is a death sentence. Melissa pulls a knife on Nick and tells him, you need to worry about me. You don't need to worry about them down there, because if you don't do what I say, I'm gonna cut you. Like, she literally has a knife to his throat and everything. She is not playing about her man at all. So this whole encounter breaks Nick and he starts crying. We figure out that his tattoos are fake. He's not this hard ass emo punk guy that he's pretending to be. He's soft. So after all this discussion and knife slinging, Nick decides to put on the lot lizard's outfit. And basically we can determine that this is a get back from Rusty Nail. That's Rusty Nail's whole MO. He gonna get his get back. He gonna get his lick back. So basically this is just Rusty Nail throwing Nick's words back in his face. The words that he said earlier about truckers being trash and, you know, the lot lizards and all this stuff. So now he is the lot lizard surrounded by trashy truckers. So now Nick is just out there with these heels on and this little crusty wig, and he's looking for meth. What I hadn't thought about, how is Nick gonna get this meth? And it wasn't until a man was willing to sell him some that I realized what Rusty Nail had in mind. Because what kind of payment do you have if you're dressed like a lot lizard and you trying to get meth? I know how you gonna pay. Before the man could get a hold of Nick, Nick is like running off, and Rusty Nail actually scoops up Nick. So now both of the men have been snatched up by Rusty Nail. And you know what? At this point, honestly, I'm not even gonna lie to you. If this was me and my sister in a car, girl, cut your losses. You knew this man from the internet, right? Right? Okay. And then my man got busted in the head in the bathroom and snatched up. So, I mean, like, if me and my sister and Melissa and Kayla, we would have been gone. We're done. They're done. Sorry to these men. Once they see that Nick has been snatched up, the girls then chase down Rusty Nail in pursuit to save Nick and Bobby at this point. Now, somehow, while the girls are chasing behind Rusty Nail, somehow that truck ends up behind them. The whole optics of this chase just don't make sense. And then the accident itself is actually insane. Like, he hits them in the back, and then I'm just going to try to insert a clip. He hits them in the back, tips the car forward, and then hits him again. I don't know how this works, but in the end, Kayla and Melissa are upside down in the car. They see Rusty Nail's big rig coming straight at them, and Kayla has a plan. So Kayla comes up with this plan that they'll wait for the truck to get as close as possible before they jump out, because big rigs or 18-wheelers, they have a very limited field of vision. So if the truck is very close to the wreckage, they could get out and Rusty Nail will never see them, because they're kind of like in this blind spot for him if they wait at the perfect moment. So Melissa jumps out of the car trying to stick to the plan, but she notices that Kayla's not doing the same. Turns out Kayla is actually pent inside of the car and she cannot get out. So now Melissa has to abandon her sister and jump out of the way. But right before Kayla gets hit by the truck, she gives Rusty Nail one final middle finger. So back at the house that they stole the car from, Bobby and Nick are tied up in this garage or shed in the back of the house. And remember, in the beginning, we saw these numbers and body parts written in red on the wall. Well, here's where this comes into play. Rusty Nail sits Bobby and Nick across from each other, and he's talking about how they like to gamble and how they're betting men, the way that they talked in the diner about, placing bets. So Rusty Nail wants Bobby and Nick to play a game. He asks Nick what's his favorite game, and Nick says that his favorite game is craps. So Rusty Nail's like, okay, cool. Roll the dice. If your favorite game is craps, roll them. The gag is the number on the dice correlates with the body part on the wall. So one of the numbers that Nick rolled, like for example, let's say that Nick rolled 5. 5 equals chest on the wall. So that means Bobby has to get tortured in the chest area. So Rusty Nail actually has a rusty nail in the shape of an R that stands for Rusty Nail, and he brands Bobby in the chest with said rusty nail. I know that's a mouthful. It's basically a torturous game of craps. At the end of this game, Nick dies. Rusty Nail actually takes the rod that Nick picked up at the morgue and shoves it through his head. It's very, very graphic. So that's the end of that game. Rusty Nail then takes Bobby and strings him up in the back of the truck and tells him, everybody's dead. You the last one. And now I'm about to have fun with you. Basically, he strings Bobby up by his neck in the back of the 18-wheeler and he's getting ready to take off. But there are police lights flashing behind them. So Rusty Nail gets out of the truck and he's looking for the police. But it's only a police motorcycle. Now remember, in the beginning of the movie, Melissa has all this motorcycle knowledge. Turns out she stole a police motorcycle and she pulled up behind the truck and cut on the lights to distract Rusty Nail. While Rusty Nail is distracted, she hits him in the back of the head, knocking him out momentarily. She gets in the back of the truck, she takes Bobby down, and Bobby's like, we gotta go. So she leaves Bobby in the back of the truck. She gets into the cab of the 18-wheeler and tries to take off, but the tail bed part is not hooked up to the front end of it. So when she takes off, she leaves Bobby behind. So we see Rusty Nail standing there as she's driving away. He's literally standing there. We see it. And she's pulling off. But somehow he ends up on the back of the truck. I don't know how this happens. It just does. It don't make no sense. So now Rusty Nail is on top of the cab of the truck. He's trying to get in the car. He's trying to get at her. At this point, I'm like, girl, just slam on brakes and send him flying. But somehow he's just skating on top of this truck, holding on like he Jeepers Creepers or something. Supernatural somehow. So then he scales on the side of the truck, opens the passenger door. She does not hear this. I've never been in an 18-wheeler, so I can't really say what it would sound like in there, but I think I would notice the door opening. Maybe not. So he gets in and he's, strangling her. They're fighting in the cab of the car. As she's driving, they end up back at the main house. So now she has the plan to run this truck over the cliff. She jumps out, does a tuck and roll, and the truck goes flying over the canyon that we see in the beginning. So as she's laying in the dust, Bobby runs up to her. He makes sure she's okay. They look over the edge of the canyon and they see the truck and they're like, oh, finally, it's over. Then she looks down beside her shoe and somehow Rusty Nail's wallet is laying by her foot. But it's not really over until she kicks his wallet down the canyon and she goes, yeah, now it's over. Very cheesy, very 2008. But yeah, now the movie is over and Rusty Nail is presumed dead. Except he's not dead. We get a final scene at the end of the movie. A girl is stranded on the side of the road. Her car has broken down. She's trying to flag down a truck as it's driving by, but the truck just blows right by her. She calls the truck driver an asshole for not stopping, and then the truck slams on brakes. So the truck driver then backs up and then asks the girl if she needs a ride. And when he's opening the car door, we can see his hand is kind of burnt up. So it's only to be assumed that this is Rusty Nail and he survived the fire and the crash. The girl then says yes, she does need a ride. And he tells her to hop on in. And that is the end of the movie. So I'm assuming that Rusty Nail heard the girl call him an asshole because he was going to keep driving. But when she called him an asshole, we all know Rusty Nail don't play like that. Rusty Nail is the king of getting that lick back. You don't play on his phone. You don't play with his stuff. You don't play with Rusty Nail, okay? So he probably heard her say asshole, and now them is fighting words, and you gonna pay. But anyways, that is the end of this movie. So the original Joyride movie was actually really, really good, like 10 out of 10. I think I would still recommend that to people who like thrillers in 2024. I think it's one of those underrated watches. Like if somebody has never seen it, yeah, go watch it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good. Now, Joyride 2, it's kind of teetering on the edge of like, don't waste your time. It was still a good watch, still enjoyable. Like I said, this was probably a very good film for 2008, and I feel like I did watch this in 2008, and I'm pretty sure that I probably enjoyed it. In 2024, it's not that good of a watch. I mean, I would give it, if I had to rate it out of 10, I think I would rate it like a 7 out of 10. I've seen so much worse. And this, it really wasn't that bad. It was just a little corny, a little cheesy. Overall, it's still a pretty good watch. Now, Joyride 3, I'm not even gonna lie. I started watching Joyride 3 and I had to cut it off. So this was gonna be a little bit more difficult, but stand by. We're gonna be covering Joyride 3 next. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.